everybody, welcome to Randi Sands and the Mediumship crew. And thank you for joining us. It's an honor and a privilege to have you guys. And this should be an absolutely fabulous episode of Randi Sands and the Mediumship crew. I've got my notes over here because I didn't want to forget anything, you guys. Also, for those of you that don't know, before we get started, we have a YouTube page. It's Randi Sands, and we have a lot of content there that doesn't go onto Facebook Live. So you guys, we encourage you, if you want to hear about different spiritual topics, to subscribe and hit the bell, just so you're made aware of new content that may interest you. And tonight we're doing an in-depth review on, I put it away, the book, The Blue Island. SSK's got her copy right there. She's good like that. Yes, you got to wiggle it a little bit. Wiggle it just a little bit.
Just have to put it in front of you.
Hey, Evie.
There you go. And before we get started, for those of you that may or may not be interested, next Monday, October 5th at 8 p.m. Eastern, we will be having an in-depth review on the High Priestess and the Empress cards from the tarot deck. And again, you can either let me know if you want to join us on Zoom, or you can watch on Facebook Live, whichever suits your fancy. And you are now going to embark on a journey with us into the Blue Island. So before I open up the floor, I'm going to give everybody a little bit of information that pretty much it's just in the foreword, and it's going to seem like I'm giving the whole book away. I'm not even going to touch the edges of the book. Stacy's laughing because she knows. So the Titanic sunk in April of 1912. And William T. Stead's daughter was on tour with a Shakespearean company. And Pardo Woodman was not only a member of that particular Shakespearean company, but he was also a medium. In the book, it calls him a psychic. I'm going to disagree with that a little bit, because it was through automatic writing, and he was getting it from somebody that had crossed over. So I'm going to call that mediumship. Mm-hmm. And I forgot to turn my phone down, so let me do that now. And he foretold of the downing of a boat and saw the crossing of an elderly man that was related to this woman. And of course, they got information after that that the Titanic had gone down. And of course, William had passed away, and he was a very famous author. So his daughter, they found that he could come back, and he basically gave them proof of his existence by giving them headlines before they actually became headlines. And his daughter worked very closely with Pardo Woodman in 1918. And it was quite interesting, because what they found was that in order for him to really give Mr. Woodman much by way of writing, his daughter needed to be present, because he had to draw on her energy. And the interesting thing is that the writing never overlapped. It was always very legible. And when he wrote, he either had his eyes closed, or most generally, he had a rag over his face. So it's all quite interesting. And let me ask you guys that are here, how many of you have read the book? Okay, so we're going to have some good conversation. So with that, I don't want to give up too much more. So I want to open the floor and see what struck everybody, because I've got a whole list here of what struck me. It's as long as I am tall, maybe longer. So who wants to start? Go ahead, Stace.
I'll start, I suppose. I love Blue Island is probably one of the #1 books that I probably suggest people to read who definitely want to get a glimpse of what the afterlife or the next phase is. And what I love about most books that are written in some form of style like this, when it's somebody who had some sort of interest in, William Steed had interest in spiritualism and spirit communication before he even got on the Titanic. So he already knew when he crossed over, kind of, he was like, well, wait a minute, I know that communication is possible. And you know what I love? I love the simplicity of it all. That's what I love. We have to try to see things as so complicated, but it's truly not. It's simplistic in its basic nature. So I think that's what I love most about the book is the simplicity of it all. Do you know, when you read each chapter and it talks about different levels, or, how you go from one form of consciousness into the next form of consciousness, it's the simplicity of it all that I find most fascinating.
And it was amazing that, again, we know that back in that time that spiritualist was, pretty much a movement, but he and his daughter both were spiritualists, and I'll tell you, one of the things, there's many that struck me, but one of them was that this entire tragedy had to play out in its totality. The people that were going to transition, the people that were going to be saved were saved before they all ascended together. It's like everybody was gathered up, like somebody that went 2 hours ago didn't get to go before this guy 2 hours later. Everybody was gathered up and they all went together. And I found that rather amazing. Anybody else? Because I can just keep going, you guys. I got all kinds of stuff.
You assume that happens, it always happens that way? Like if there's more than one person?
I think if it's a big tragedy, where there's a lot, I mean, I'm not there to know for sure, but if I had to take a really good educated guess, I would guess that if it's a major tragedy that, yeah, they probably all, like, oh my goodness, what country was it? Just recently where they had that big explosion.
Lebanon.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I bet you they all were all gathered up and ascended together.
That's interesting. I find that interesting because I immediately think of September 11th. And I'm thinking, this group in Washington, this group in Pennsylvania, and the group in Washington and New York City all ascend together from all those different locations.
Well, maybe, I don't know if they would all ascend together, like maybe each location.
Well,
but
see,
maybe
okay, I'm just going to interrupt because as you continue to read the book, it talks about the existence of time not being the time that we feel, the existence of conditions not being the conditions we think. So when you talk about 9/11, we automatically, our human mind goes distance. We're going from one state to another state to another state, when the spirit realm is like literally right here next to us. Yeah. And there's no distance. There's no time frame, which I find fascinating. I always find the no time frame absolutely fascinating. And even the spirit world doesn't really know how to get it through our thick heads, like in a, in an appropriate way. But the time frame, I, as a medium, maybe those of you who do mediumship, I've had spirits say, oh, I've hung around for a few days, made sure everything was settled, and it's not like they ascend up in an elevator to a big, big place far, far, far away that we can't communicate with them. It's more like they ascend to right here.
Right here. Right.
Yeah. Like instead of the Willy Wonka going up, it just goes. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know.
Well, you know, something you just said kind of segues into another thing that I found interesting, which was he said that when he got there, he like almost wanted a telephone right away. And he went from wanting a telephone, and as a spiritualist, he still had to learn how to communicate with those still in the living. His first couple of attempts weren't necessarily successful, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Well, his first attempt was successful, but it wasn't with his daughter. And that's what made it successful, because he talks about the love. Like, sometimes the people's first communication isn't with actually their loved one to let them know it's okay. It's more like a communication maybe with a random seance going on.
Yeah, I was just about to say when you said it wasn't with his daughter, it triggered. Wasn't it a seance?
Yeah. It was a
Okay.
seance of mediums at the time trying to connect to people who had crossed over on that from the Titanic. So there wasn't really a connection per se, because again, the law of attraction is into play, right? So the seance is, I think it was like what, 1918. I mean, this was years later, or 1916, who knows? He doesn't even know the precise year, but it was, you know, time. It could have been a couple of years after 1912. It could have been 6 months after 1912, but you know,
it could have been within days.
Next day. Yeah. I don't know. So, but they specifically in the seance were requesting those who had crossed over from the Titanic to come through. So he came through.
But if I remember right, he needed someone else's help in the spirit world to do that.
The official, whoever that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he called it. Yeah, the official.
Yes, Tammy.
Actually, the day that, I went to see my dad and had to let him know what to expect when he got to the other side, because he was afraid to pass. So I told him that he wasn't going to be judged by a God, right? That he is his own judge, and that he would see how things played out. But I asked him that night, I said, before he left, I says, Aunt Polly's going to come get you. I said, you need to go with her. Everybody's going to be fine. You're going to do just fine. You'll see everybody. So he passed away that night, and I had asked him if he would send me a message when he passed, to let me know that he was all right. Not only did I get one message, but I got 3 messages the very same day that he passed. So, but my father was also a sensitive, so I don't believe that he had to really learn how to do that. I believe that they still have enough of their physical energy from this lifetime that it hasn't gone all to spirit, that they're still able to manipulate things that are physical and substance, shortly after the time that they pass.
You know, you guys, like, this couldn't be planned any better, because you guys are just segueing into all these points that I had written down, and I wrote mine down from memory. It's interesting that you say that, because my aunt passed away a couple years ago, and she was a retired bureau chief of the Department of Justice. Just amazing. I loved her to pieces. And I remember I went to visit her. I hadn't seen her in years, because I had moved to Florida and she was still in California. And by the way, Jack, you're in charge of Facebook. I forgot to tell you, in case anybody has any questions or anything. So I had gone to see her, and she was dying. She had lung cancer. And I used to call her Aunt Go, because she was so smart. She was that close to God. She was just missing one letter. And and I turned to her, I said, don't be afraid to go. You're not going to die. And she was like E.F. Hutton. When she spoke, everybody listened. And it was the first time in my life when I spoke to her, and she was really listening intently. And I have to tell you, she crossed. And the next night, I was teaching a mediumship class. I came home. There was an apple sitting in a place in my house. It would have been impossible. It was sitting perfectly upright, and she loved apples. Mm-hmm. So she did leave a message as well, And what I found interesting that you said is, and this is in my notes, it was nice to know that we're greeted by loved ones, but also that we remain who we are. Like our thoughts, our humor, all of that stays the same. And that was one thing with my aunt. She was very much about her mind and her brain, and she didn't want to lose that. Mm-hmm. So that was another thing that I was able to share with her from the book. Anybody have any thoughts?
But I have something.
Okay.
It kind of makes you really think about your life and all of your thoughts that you have, because once you get up there, you're judged on, well, not judged, but you have to go through a test to talk about all of your memories or your feelings and your what you think in your brain, that it makes you want to be a much better person before you go.
Well, we'll talk about that as we go, but that's interesting. And there's something about that I have in notes a little farther back.
I want to just add in or chime in about the Tammy and her aunt, or her dad. I'm sorry, your dad. Mm-hmm. And then Randi and your aunt. Again, I have to point out time. It doesn't exist. So like with him, with your dad, he could have just been greeted right away through the people that he needed and went right to, like, even when William went to go communicate, he knew he could. It's not that he couldn't. And I love the fact that in the book they talk about like a building just for communication. I think, like, I just, in my mind, I picture this telephone company with all these wires coming out, seeking sensitives to stick their head out. But anyways, I digress. Sorry. But then he talks about when he comes through to get through to his daughter, how they enter a room like Muslim, which is what we consider ectoplasm, because if you in the introduction, his daughter says that he manifested on a glass negative plate, first his face on the side of his daughter and then over his daughter. And my guess is that is probably what he's talking about, is how he got to, so he actually manifested in a physical sense to produce his face over, his daughter's face on that glass negative. So it was interesting when they said that they walked through these rooms of Muslim, and then you would see the people like sitting for seance, or the gentleman sitting to automatic right, So I find it fascinating, because I think some people get over there. I don't know. I'll probably get over there and just be so astounded by all the other spiritualists that are over there that I will forget to come back and check in on my family. I am sorry. I will be like, uh-oh. wait, is that Cora Richards? Wait.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'll be like a stalker, like put restraining orders against me.
And what's funny is how we picture different things. Like you picture like the telephone building, and I picture like this building with a dome top and like this thing in the center that's almost like a crystal ball on a stand, or so, something like out of Indiana Jones or something. It's really funny how we create our own visions, right? But yes, I was shocked that my aunt had done that so quickly, because as mediums, a lot of times we hear it takes them a little bit to build up the energy. I'm going to get over there and I'm going to go straight to the classrooms. I'm going to be a spirit guide. I'm going to school. As soon as I get there, I'm not even taking time to say hello to anybody. I'm going straight to school. And he talks about they greeted him and they all went for refreshments, and even though you don't have to eat and you don't have to sleep, you still can. And you can pretty much do anything that you liked here on Earth. I mean, I don't imagine sex is one of them, but like if you liked football, you can do football.
Now, according to some lady, she does still have sex with her passed on husband.
Well, I'm talking about once everybody's over there. But
I just read about that. That was something else.
and I've heard about stuff like that too. So I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah.
But if you like football, you can play football. If you like to swim in the ocean, you can swim in the ocean. Whatever it was you like to do there, you can, pretty much do, on the Blue Island. And I found it to be a place for acclimation, like to get accustomed to the fact that you're not in the physical anymore. Like, Lord forbid, it's probably culture shock enough if we didn't have the ability to work our way into it. It'd probably be kind of a little more difficult. And another thing I found interesting was there's no time limit on how long it takes you. Like, some people will be content to do that for a while before they, the wheel starts turning and they start becoming interested in the spirit realm.
You're going to get there and everybody's going to be sitting around watching TV.
Yeah.
Netflix. Catching up on all the
sitting there watching the Seahawks play.
Oh no.
But it is fascinating how he talks about, because I do think you're right. I do think the Blue Island is probably that place that where you just kind of get comfortable back in your original skin, or start to. But what I found fascinating was how we start to lose the need for the human activity. Like, it's more like a if you're a football player, the reasons why you're an athlete, you like the physical the physical conditioning of the body, so you're still in a way, and in essence has like a pseudo body. But eventually you realize, well, wait, I don't need that anymore. Like, it just doesn't bring you what you thought it would. And it sounds like, in the way he describes it, it just dissipates. It's just like, it's not like this huge epiphany. Like, I think everybody has this idea of crossing over, or what heaven is like, as this huge, like, whoa, golden gates and all this, like, whoa, whatever it is. And it's just, it's simple. It's very simple. And he just says, like, all of a sudden what used to be is no longer. And it's like, all of a sudden you just don't want to smoke, but you could, if you want to go back to it, it's always there. But you just realize you don't want it anymore, or you don't need it anymore, or
I think it just loses its shine, just like how you'll have a hobby. And let's say, I don't know, somebody likes to knit, and like they just love to knit. And then it just, over time, just gradually becomes less and less and less interesting. I think that's...
Well, but even with him though, I wouldn't say it was less interesting, because, and not trying to jump ahead, but when he moves to the real world, that he calls it,
the mundane world,
he's still interested in spiritual communication. So it's I
meant like football, or like the things that we do here.
The eating, the drinking, the cooking.
Yeah, I think it just loses
physical
its shine.
body activity. Yeah.
And another thing that I found, and this, I will tell you, this kind of dumbfounded me, because it really resonated with me, which is when she talked about that once her father had transitioned, their bond became so much closer. Because that has happened to me with people that have transitioned, where when they were here in the physical, we didn't have the best relationship. And once they crossed over, oh my goodness, we've got a great relationship. We talk all the time. I interact with them all the time. And any issues that there were gone. I've had some emotional nights where, people that have transitioned came in, and, we all made amends with each other and, whatever. And, it was a pretty emotional time. But then we had a bond that was just fabulous. And I don't know if anybody else has really experienced that that's in here. Has anybody else experienced that?
Actually, I had somebody last week that I went to high school with that was in my hairdressing class, that her and I were not good friends. We knew each other, okay, but later in life, she found me on Facebook and she just followed me. I think they were interested in what I do, right? And so she came to me after she passed from cancer and gave me a message that I had to give to her best friend, and her and I weren't good friends either, but she also follows me on Facebook. So I had to get on Messenger and give her the whole story, sorry, I don't know if you believe this or not, but I get these messages, and I gave her the whole, kit and caboodle about her friend reaching out to her. But I think what happens is us having that light, right, of being mediums, that we attract people even though we weren't the best of friends. If they think on a spiritual level that we have something that they can use to get to other people in their lives after they pass away. But no, we weren't friends, but now it's like, everything's cool. And yeah, it just shocked me that she came to me in the first place, actually. So.
And she'll probably start popping in more.
Yeah, that happens. Precursor.
Right. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
And I found it humorous that on Earth, we're taught to be very caring. We're taught to be considerate and to interact with each other and what have you. And he's like, yeah, over here, no. He's like, that's good on Earth, but here everybody is more almost like self-absorbed. Like it's all about them because they're concentrating on themselves to achieve what they need to achieve. Right. So did you find that interesting, Stacy?
There we go. Honestly, I know what you're talking about. I guess I never saw it from that perspective, the way that you're saying it, because he does say, like, especially in the Blue Island, once he shifts, there is this whole love of man. No, there's no difference between anything, any race, anything. So even though they're going about their daily activity, there's this sense of love, just unconditional, love for your fellow being, just put it that way. So it's almost, but on the Blue Island, I suppose, yeah, because he does say that, like, it's very much, but it's that, think about it, like you said, it's the adjustment time. So they're probably really wrapped up, because he does say there's some people who are so grieving, like the woman sitting on the beach mourning her lover, the loss of her lover. So she is so consumed in her loss that's where she will stay until she moves on from that. And he continues moving on just because, that's what he's there to do. Like, he accepts the fact that he's crossed over compared to the other person. And that other people on the Blue Island came and went all within a matter of moments, where he stayed for days. Whatever. See, here we go to time again, Eve. Right. Come up with new time criteria for us that works. We can start our own language. But so, yeah, you're right, I guess, in a way. But doesn't that make sense? Because I think of it this way: you can't change anybody but yourself. Like, I think back to some of our, the philosophies of living, the philosophies of spiritualism, personal responsibility. Well, of course, you have to take care of the skin that you're in before you take care of everyone else around you. So I didn't look at it, I guess it's the same perspective, Randy, isn't it?
I think so.
I think so. I think that here maybe on Earth I think we're maybe weighed down a little bit, like he says, with all the material, like, you know, like with the fact that we all have to pay We Energies or whatever your bill is, or you're not going to get, you know, you're not going to have electricity. So good thoughts don't bring you electricity, you know. Where there you don't have any of that mundane, I don't know, you know, weighing down. So that is interesting that you brought that up. Yeah, because I just thought like, oh yeah, personal responsibility. One of the favorite reasons I came to spiritualism.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what also intrigued me is when he started talking about the different buildings and what they're for. Like, if you like music, there's a building for music. If you like communicating with the living, there's like a building for that. If you're a businessman, there's a building for organization. You know, there's all these different, and you go where you want to go. And when you finish one school, you go into another. And I also thought it interesting when he said, your degree of happiness there depends on the mindset you arrive there with.
Yep.
Well, and that goes into what Kathy was saying about thoughts, because that's deep, you know, but
You think?
that is like the deep sea of never ending stuff. But yeah.
Deeper than the deep blue ocean.
Exactly. Exactly. But you know, first I wanted just to go back. I saved a quote because once we get there, I'll bring it up. That really just like, I don't know, to me, when I was rereading, I try to reread this book numerous times because it doesn't matter. You go back and read it, you're going to find something new. But he also defines the triune, you know, but where he calls the soul the mind, and the spirit is that, you know, spark. So it's the body, soul, and mind, or the body, soul, and spirit. But he puts the soul in the mind, which I find fascinating for those of you who do mediumistic work or any type of connecting. You know, I always ask people, where do you feel your soul resides? You know,
My heart.
I feel it here. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. But, you know, the way he talks about the mind, the thoughts, you know, so I wonder if it's almost because he does talk about how the brain, obviously he studied this before he crossed over, and he did it for the, what's the English-based research society? He was involved with some of them before he crossed over. So anyways, you know, they were studying the brain, you know, and the fact that we still don't know much about it. I mean, we know more than we do from, you know, 1890s, but not much. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting.
I've got some stuff running through my head right now. I've been studying A Course in Miracles since 2016, which is about a year after my sister passed. And I'm just like starting to wake up, I guess, and start understanding a lot. But what you're talking about, the soul being in the mind, and a lot of these things that I'm reading and studying and coming from all different directions are all leading to the same place. Like there is, and it goes back to the time thing too. There's eternity and there's our energy, and it's all connected. And mind, soul, God, the one mind, as the Course in Miracles puts it, is like where we were spirit, soul connected with the mind. And then at some point we got the tiny mad idea where we thought we could live without that spirit connection, God, creator, whatever. So we take on ego and we think we killed God. So we run around feeling guilty. But now as I start learning these principles, I started understanding that here on earth, like Cassie said, I'm going to start taking care of self and start getting myself right. And as I'm doing things to make myself right, my vibrations rising, which is what when I first came to spiritualism to begin with was all this grief and pain. And I just want to hear from these people that passed. And, you know, I learned through the years, like, okay, you have that ability too. Okay, there's times and messages come through and okay, yeah, okay, I think maybe I'm getting it. But what I'm learning now is this, what we're learning now with Unity, we got a new group going on, it's Conscious Evolution, and it's talking about how things started from the Big Bang and how we went from a single cell to amoeba to humanity, you know, to the, you know, primates to the humanity to where are we going next? And it's like all this stuff is like coming together, like all this stuff going on now in the world is our great birthing, transformation into this one humanity where love, mind, all that is all connected again. And it's like all these lights are going off, and this is really awesome that we take, you know, it's taking this group, working with Unity, A Course in Miracles, going to Spiritualist Church, all this stuff is like coming together, and it's like I'm starting to feel really good, even though there's times that sadness is there. As long as I know that I'm connected to source and spirit, it really doesn't matter what's here, is what we make, what we create, and what we create, what we see, we're gonna get back. So all those years of all that negative, I was attracting negative, and now that I'm living more positive, it seems to be I'm attracting all this positive stuff, abundance, spirit, love. And I thank you guys because it's kind of helping me bring all this together. I really want to read the Blue Island now.
Well, we thank you for joining us. And you know, you said you know, who knows what's next? I don't know about anybody else, but I'm going to Spirit Guide School. I'm going to Spirit Guide School. Anybody want to join me?
That doesn't surprise me. I'll go.
Okay. So another thing that stood out to me, and this I kind of found humorous, is that, and I've told Jack many times, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. Because it says that every thought and every act is recorded. Well, hell's bells, I'm in trouble.
We all are.
I think we all are.
So it's like, hey, I have to spend the rest of my life trying to counteract some of that. Not that I've ever done anything really.
That's only if we need a refresher course.
Yeah, I mean, not that I've ever done anything really bad, but you know, if every thought is recorded, well, I probably have had a few thoughts that weren't so great. Yeah. So that you know, when I first read that wasn't so lovely. Because I started thinking, okay, what have I thought about? You know, so yeah, that didn't feel so great when I first saw that. Let's see, there was some other stuff in here too. Stacy.
Wait, I'm just gonna interrupt because I want to go back to that process of all thoughts are recorded, because he does state, though, there are certain thoughts that just, I mean, though they are recorded, it's more of the action that follows the thought, or he talks about them as being constructive thoughts or deconstructive thoughts. So we all have thought bubbles that pop out that we just kind of wonder, like, you know, if you guys see me flying around on a unicorn in a tutu, you know, throwing gummy bears, you know, my thought is, you know, good, but am I truly creating that? I don't know, but we'll find out when I get there. But he does talk about them. Yeah,
listen, if you're going to be doing all that, the unicorn and throwing gummy bears and stuff, you're not going to Spirit Guide School with me.
I don't wear tutu.
Come on, I'm going to be a joy guide. Who would not want that as their joy guide?
Okay.
Joy guide.
Well, I'm going to be a protector guide.
Okay.
So if you're going to do a joy guide, I guess that's acceptable. We'll probably be in the same building in different classes. So you'll be there with glitter
on the playground, and you'll be behind a desk with notes and stuff.
Bows and arrows. Hey, don't get near my person.
Can I be the healing guide? Is that a possibility?
I think you can be whatever you want to be, because, you know,
That's what I'm gonna do.
another thing that it does say is that learning is something that you want to do.
Yep.
It becomes something you want to do. No one is forced.
No.
You know, no one is forced. It becomes something you choose to do. Yes, Jack.
Lynn has a question.
Okay, what is it?
Does the book talk about whether people come back to the earthly world as other people?
Oh, reincarnation.
Oh, hold on one second, because you know what? I just saw something, and I think it's one of my Facebook friends, Dion, if I remember the logo. And it says, "Can I join you? Is it too late?" I can't do it now because it's Zoom webinar. But you know what? Feel free to type in, and feel free to join us in any of the other ones. We'd love to have you. So what did Lynn say?
Reincarnations, you wanted to know if they talked about people coming back to Earth in earthly form
I've read that book.
as other people.
I am going from memory, and I don't remember that. Do you, Stacy?
I don't remember that either.
I don't remember that.
He talks about, he doesn't really talk about reincarnation as it's known here. Most people choose to stay, and even so now am I getting confused though between books all of a sudden, because I don't remember him really ever, you know, when he moves, because he eventually moves out of the Blue Island. The Blue Island is like the transfer island. Some people stay there, you know, longer or shorter than others, but it's that acclimate of getting yourself ready. And once you choose, it's all comes down to self-choice, not what's the word? Like selfishness. It's self-choice. There's a big difference.
Right.
But it's once you choose, then you move to this next, you know, back into the elevator.
Level.
Over
Yeah.
and up like 2 degrees, you know, and you know, and in that existence, that's where he chose to stay. I want to say that I feel like I read something that, see, it's all about the different dimensional shifts. I don't ever remember the word reincarnation being used in this. I do feel like he references though that there is few people that choose to, it's like the more you start to get away from the earthly experience, the less you desire the earthly experience. So why would, you know what I mean? So I would assume that if you've elevated past the Blue Island and then some, you're probably not wanting to go back. The only time you go back to the Blue Island is really to just pick up your loved ones as they cross over. That's what I remember from the book. If anybody remembers something different, but
Yeah, I'm in alignment with you on that. And I really hope that, I think that's Dion that sent that, and I really hope that she starts typing. Because if I remember correctly, she's a medium in the UK. So I would really love to have her participation. So Dion, if you're still there, please, you know, type your thoughts. We'd love to read them.
I wanted to make a comment.
Yes.
You know, I read, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Kim Russo, The Happy Medium, but she wrote a couple of books, and I read both of them. And one of the things she talks about is like, we have soul circles, and that we choose to incarnate in these soul circles to learn lessons. So we're always learning here and there. And I guess we just keep going until we learn different lessons, taking on different roles in these soul groups. Like one incarnation, I'll be mom, and the next one I'll be the daughter, and then the next one I'll be switched, and where we're learning how to learn love, which is what Stacy said. What ultimately what spirit and all this is love, pure love, and that's what we're here on earth to learn.
Well, and in the book, it actually discusses, like he talks of like what Randy was just saying before the question came in, is even it doesn't matter what degree you've shifted to, dimension or island you're on, however you want to label it, there's always knowledge, always. I'm going to just quote like this one thing that I thought was fascinating. So what makes us think that we can't learn on those other realms, right? We know we can. So why always go back to dense earth when we have other dimensions we can experience? Because it says here, so he's moved off of the blue island. Am I jumping too far ahead, Randy? Tell me if I am.
No, but before you do, I really want to encourage Dion, because she is a medium, and I know, well, I shouldn't say I know, I'm almost positive she's in the UK, because we chat every now and then. And her son passed. And I remember this. He was a very, very good looking young man. He wrote on how life was going to be. Something about came back to learn. And Dion, keep typing, please. I'm watching it. Oh, and her son passed, and he left her a gift, which is nice. So yes, go ahead and please continue, Stacy.
Well, I just thought because you were talking about the building. So on Blue Island, they talk about buildings of knowledge that you go into for whatever reason. If you want to be a business person, if you're still in construction and you want to construct, if you whatever, like anything. And then he shifts into the next where what he calls his residence. Right? The Blue Island isn't really where you live, it's where you adjust.
And he calls the next one, if I remember correctly, the mundane world, because the Blue Island, and this I didn't understand. He said it's not necessarily blue, but it has the impression, I believe it was, of being blue.
Right.
And he said something about blue rays. And another thing I thought interesting was he said there is no night.
Right.
They don't have night there.
Mm-mm.
But you know what? They have to have some form of night, because think about, they're going to be astrology. There's going to be stargazing. Like, what about those people who want to learn about the stars?
Maybe not there. Maybe they're, who knows? Maybe where they're located. They're between the sun and the moon or something. I don't know.
Maybe.
I found the part about reincarnation. It says a record in full of all former states and from the sphere. If your record has qualified to the point of allowing it, you will be given the choice of returning to Earth again, reincarnating. If your record does not qualify for choice in this matter, you will be directed either to return or to continue according to the teachers. The purified, consider, will afford you most opportunity to cleanse yourself in the necessary way. And then it just goes on and on. So.
Oh, okay. So Dion's writing again. Dion, honey, I wish I could bring you in, but since we're started and it's webinar, I can't back out to do that.
And that was in chapter 13, if anybody wants to look.
Thank you. She says, you write in your life, Jordan wrote in to have the accident to save the younger generation from, I don't know what that term is.
I think it might be drugs.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
And you don't move up anywhere till you learn your lesson. I agree with that. I think we all have a lesson. I do believe that we have a contract before we're born, and that contract is, we're given choices on which life we're going to live to learn that lesson, because we have choices. Do you want what's behind door number A, B, or C? Which would you prefer? So yeah. Stacy, let's talk about the mundane world, because the Blue Island is the transition. And the mundane world it can sound not so great compared to the Blue Island. But really, it's a neat place.
Yeah, I think it is absolutely I don't think it's mundane. I think how he just I personally don't. I think I'll probably live in Mundaneville probably for my good 50,000 years plus of my existence. Because though it isn't like the Blue Island, it definitely, they talk about it being, he does talk about the blue haze or the blue, it's more of like the rays or the color. I think it's because the thing that I find fascinating, not just this book, but one of my other all-time favorite books is Life in the World Unseen, which is also another transcribed, automatically written book from somebody who has crossed over. From a different perspective, the gentleman who had crossed over was raised Catholic and was a Catholic priest, and comes back to his medium friend and tells him about the spirit world. And they're very similar. And so I wonder if the mundane world, because he says it's very average again, like he has his house and everybody has houses and they have jobs and they go places and they do things. But that's, sometimes I have to go back, you guys. I think that's what life is. It's not mundane. It's even. It's harmonious. We are thrill seekers. We need a rush. We need adrenaline. We need extreme emotion, either positive or negative. When we get into a place of comfort, I think, so he describes the mundane world to be very much like the earthly world. That's my understanding.
But it's not mundane at all, because according to him, some people have mansions, but it sounds like you can have pretty much what you want, but the mundane world is a little different than the Blue Island, because in the Blue Island you're kind of free willy from what it seems, but in the mundane world, if you want to keep what you have to keep growing, you have to keep learning. If you stop, then stuff gets taken away.
Yeah, you gotta keep earning it. But I want to just read this one thing, because he talks about that there's houses, just like buildings in the Blue Island, but he calls them more houses. So there's the rest houses, the house of music, the house for scientific research, houses for all and every kind of information and knowledge. And here's my favorite part. And the entrance fee to each and all of this is desire.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
And I just thought, there it is. I love natural and spiritual laws, and I think the law of desire is a powerful, that's like the gym worker trying to get you to go to work, right? Like that's the personal trainer inside of you to get you moving, is that desire, that passion to learn.
Oh, were you done with that thought?
Yep, totally.
Okay. I just saw something that brings me back a little ways when we were talking about, your actions and your thoughts. And it says, when coming to this land, the whole record has to be dealt with, but not by a judge in wig or gown, but by your own spirit selves.
Right.
In spirit life, we have a full and clear remembrance of all these things, and according to the quality of these individual thoughts, so we are brought into a state of regret, happiness, or unhappiness, despair, or satisfaction. Well, let me tell you, I'm already thinking about them now and regretting them, so that when I get there, I don't have to.
He says that you can do that. That's what he says, though. As you read on, he says, if you know now, it's like, even when he said to write this book, he said, it's not for everyone. Not all are going to like it. Not even most are going to understand it. But for the few who do, take these words and heed these words of advice now. And I think that's exactly, the purpose, just what you read. So if we know, like, I'm trying to change my thought pattern, because I have this, obsessive need being grown up in, you know, a restaurant. So I'm you know, I want to please everybody, you know, even though we know there are people in the world who just complain. That's their whole job. Like that's what they're here for, you know, but I have this obsessive need to please people, which also then leads to this obsessive thought process, back to Kathy and the powerful thoughts and in the book of, is that person happy? Should I do more? What should I do to make that person happy? You know, maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I'm not, you know, and so then you trigger that, like he said, you go back to that constructive and deconstructive thought process. So now I'm like, I've tried my best and I'm giving it a rest. You know, and that's the thought I'm putting in my head now, instead of, you know, getting into these obsessive thought patterns in hopes that I can correct them so I can ride a unicorn and throw some gummy bears and glitter when I get over there.
Yeah, you're going to be throwing stuff, all right. I hope they close the gummy bear and glitter store before you get there. Because it'll be very glittery.
Well, if I get there before you, Randy, guess who's meeting you? I am pushing everyone out of the way. It'll be loud and proud Stacy on her unicorn.
All right. As long as you give me a ride wherever we're going, I'll jump on the back. You know, and this is interesting too. It says, I want you first to realize that by the change of death, you do not become part of the Godhead immediately. The mysteries of life are not revealed to you as some kind of a welcoming gift on your arrival here. I mean, I think we have to earn them.
Exactly.
I can only see a little farther than you, and I do not by any means possess the key to the door of all knowledge and all truth that we have each to work for. And as we pass through one door, we find another in front of us to be unlocked, and another and another. I'm ready. I keep asking for my spirit guide school. I do. I mean, not that I want to leave my wife, you know, that wouldn't make her happy, but I mean, I keep asking. I'm like, okay, do me a favor, just make sure there's an opening for me when I get there.
That's your name.
Cause as soon as I get there, I'm ready. Like, let me just slide into home plate. right into the doors of the school. I don't need anybody to greet me except Stacy if she's there first. Because the unicorn couldn't ride me to school.
Oh, goodness.
The other thing that I found interesting was when he talked about travel.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about that, Stace?
Well, it's really just a thought. I mean, it's just, that's the thing. We can't get our mind around it. This is and you know, good job to him. Proud of Mr. Steed, proud of, you know, all of those who have come back to tell us about their experience of crossing over. But there is not enough words in the English language or any language, Japanese language, any language. There's not enough words in any language to truly explain how it is over there, you know, and it's really all through, you know, the way I perceive and how he explains it makes me feel it's more all through thought. You don't buy a first class ticket on Delta to fly you over to, you know, the Red Island, and then you don't get on, you know, Air Yellow to get to the, like, there's just no, you know, it's just more of, you know, a shift in your consciousness, a shift in your understanding, you know. And he even talks about how Earth, like, even in his busy life, like, he's busy doing his stuff, he's learning, he's gaining knowledge. Anytime somebody on Earth who loved him, you know, love is the connecting key, you know, if there was any form of affection or love, and they thought of him, it's like he just picked up the message. It was like literally sent straight into his thought process, and he felt warm. He's like, oh, that's good. Like, he knew his family was there, especially when he crossed into the mundane world. He knew his earthly family for those that were still there, were very much thinking of him, and he was communicating with them, but he also was progressing in his life as he wished them to progress in their life, you know. And I don't know, I just go back to thought, but that's my opinion. I think it's great. I think travel is going to be so much easier, and you don't have to pack bags.
Well, and there's more than just the mundane world. Yes, Tammy. Tammy, before you do that, Dion, I saw your post about the change guides. Please type your thoughts. We want more perspectives. So please feel free to type. Yes, Tammy.
Stacy, talking about when people think of them or that they're drawn back there, it's pretty funny. But that girl that came to me that I wasn't quite friends with, that wanted to get a message on, she showed me she was sitting in a room of clutter as she was in the physical state. She was sitting in a brown recliner with a white wall behind her, but there was clutter everywhere. There was a TV tray next to her, and there was stuff piled high, and there was just stuff everywhere. And what she wanted to do was to get the message to her loved ones that they need to get rid of some of that stuff. And I'm wondering if it's because so much of her is still around that every time they go into a room and they see something of hers sitting there, if that doesn't, and immediately they think of her, does that just pull her right, out of what she's doing to pay attention to the love connection that they're like, oh, geez, it's been a year now and we haven't gotten rid of any of this stuff. But it keeps them connected, too connected maybe.
Well, see, now that's where I'm always the one person out. So I don't believe in reincarnation. Not the reincarnation that we talk about here in this earthly existence, because I think if we can talk all these different dimensions, why do we just keep coming back to Earth when we know we can be educated in any dimension? Spirit shows us this. But anyways, this is my other thought, and I get it. I'm a wacko and a weirdo a little bit with my thought. But Tammy, what you were saying, I feel like from how I understood it, if you're thinking about it, because I just want to make this clear, because as being a medium, we deal with people who have lost, and they don't want to hold back their loved one from growing. You never hold back anybody from growing, because it's more about, like Randi said, and like how the book says, it's about you. So yes, she might be able to think like, oh, hey, yeah, they're cleaning my stuff, they're going through my stuff, or every night my mother cries because she misses me. But the mom is not holding the son back, or this person is not holding your friend back. She can still learn. It's like you become a grand multitasker, because you can again, goes back to thoughts and communication. Even though he's describing buildings, I wonder if they're truly buildings, or if they think it's a building and then they just go, again, try to imagine everything just through thought. Close your eyes and think. And every time when you visualize and think, that's the reality. So I think
I didn't think that it would hold her back. What I thought was it's just a constant distraction.
Like a trigger?
What I mean? Right. Like, here I am in my building and I'm studying the music and everything like that. And all of a sudden somebody on earth is all of a sudden looking at something of mine and crying over it. Is it a distraction in that short amount of time, even though there isn't time, right? But is there a distraction that kind of pulls them away from what they are doing at that moment?
It doesn't seem like it in how he describes it in the book. It's literally just a absolutely split nanosecond that he just goes, well, I love you, and sends the thought right back and continues on what he's doing. And that I love you is received through a penny on the ground, through a feeling of looking over the shoulder. So the message is received. And I didn't think you were saying that, Tammy, but I had this gut punch that I needed to say that, because there's been a lot of false stuff being spewed about the internet, about loved ones being stuck or incapable of moving on until you move on. And that just punches me in the gut. It hits one of those annoying nerves, you know.
Stacy, that's funny though, because I do have spirits that come to me to help them regain energy to be able to cross.
Well, I would say that, you know, we can give energy, we receive energy, an exchange of energy, absolutely, but I don't feel like they're how should I say,
when you go
stuck on
ghost
some
hunting,
accord.
okay, and you're in a building and there's still a spirit there in the building
Right.
that didn't want to leave the physical, right?
I grew up in one of the most haunted buildings in Wisconsin. My parents own a restaurant. There are ghosts there. It's the whole family. They just live there simultaneously. They're not stuck. They just want to be there. That's the place
Right.
they put their home into. And you know,
Uh-huh.
even in this book, he says, I live in a neighborhood that I'm familiar with. I live in the mundane world. I'm in a neighborhood that I grew up in. So I'm thinking, you know, these people who come in and they do ghost hunt. I feel like they prove, you know, they do EVPs and you can hear the ghosts.
Right.
But they're living in the building that they built. They love it. So why would they leave it? You know?
Yeah.
Well, let me interrupt you guys. Yes, Dion, you can ask a question. And you asked what that lady's name is. Our layouts are all different. So I think you might be talking about the gal with the blue background. So if you are, just let me know that that's who you're talking about, and I will tell you who she is. And yes, please ask your question. And you know, it's funny that you said ghost hunting because, yeah, we all have different layouts, Dion. So I don't know who you're talking about. If it's the lady with the blue and the blue background and the dark hair, that is Stacy Schuerman Kopchinski, and she sits on the board of NSAC. Yeah, baby. Colleen had said something to me about ghost hunting recently that really kind of made my head spin, and Colleen's been so quiet, so I'm gonna have her, I'm gonna call her on the carpet, like, Colleen, come on.
Come on down.
You know, I don't know what I'm gonna do with Jack.
You're gonna have to mute her.
I always feel like I have to be the serious one because she is just out of control. Go ahead, Colleen.
We love you. So I think what you're talking about is my, for lack of a better word, offense when people say, I'm going ghost hunting. It's like, wait a minute here. You're going to hunt a spirit. So you're basically torturing a spirit.
No.
And I just have a hard time with that.
I have a hard time when we did a ghost hunting thing for a few years, and I will never leave a spirit there that wants to transition. And I do feel that they are attached to physical material things. And at times, there are times that for some reason, it's like they had their chance to go, and then all of a sudden, they didn't know how to find their way then, or they didn't have the energy enough because of what they're wasting their energy on trying to still be in the physical sense. But no, I don't go to ghost hunts and just to see if there's ghosts there, because I know they're there. Most of the time you will find a spirit or two there if some place is supposedly haunted. But I do believe that they should receive the help that they need to go to the other side through energy or something like that. So
I don't think that that's necessarily what Colleen's having issue with, because Colleen and I both agreed that, you know, paranormal investigation, there's nothing wrong with. I think it's the term that she has the issue with. You know, like you're hunting.
Right.
You know,
kind of almost like touristy, like they have like those ghost hunts. I think that that's what the problem is. Like they go there to actually aggravate and uproot the spirits who are actually there, and they're calm, and they're there to uproot them.
Yeah, that's wrong. I do
No,
agree
I
that's
agree.
wrong.
Yeah.
But I
I mean,
also agree, I also agree with Tammy in the fact that, you know, that there are some who are a little stuck, so to speak, quote unquote. And I have encountered, I was actually part of a paranormal group when I was in Pennsylvania, and I was only brought in when they got phone calls from a residential household that were having issues. And a lot of times,
right,
those spirits just want their story to be heard.
exactly.
They just want their story to be heard. Once their story is heard and their puzzle pieces are all together, they have no problem with letting go and going.
Yep, I agree.
You know, it's funny that you just said they want to be heard, because I'm telling you, it's amazing how stuff just falls in place. Because right as you said that, because, you know, I'm sitting here kind of skimming. And right as you said that, my eyes were on a paragraph. It says, a spirit who comes here and is anxious to get in touch with earth ties may be made more unhappy by being with the earth people. For if they do not understand that he is still alive, they are all sadness and think of him as dead, as something finished. Although the spirit will go to them a great deal at first, the earth people will not know he is there and seeing him or seeing them, but being unable to make his presence known causes him much disappointment and sorrow, and gradually he will go to them less and less.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I find that interesting.
I think all of it is interesting. There's certain, and this is just me and my human experience, and I'm willing to take these thoughts with me, and I'll have to deal with them when I get up
Me
there.
too.
But there are certain words, like Colleen said, ghost hunting. I hate the word entities. They're spirits. They're
right.
spirits. They're either high vibrational spirits, or they were people at some point. They had an experience, you know.
Yep.
So to call them, you know, entities, I'm like, what is that word? Like, what is an entity? You know, like it's energy, you know. And so there's just, I think it's just you know, certain words, you know, for me at least, I can think from my perspective, trigger me, because I think you can definitely give energy to help and heal, because just like he says, there's people like the lover sitting on the beach crying. Who knows how long that lover will be there? You know, thank God we're eternal, so that lover can have those feelings, not deny them. But eventually that lover will, you know, maybe he or she will cry on that beach on the Blue Island until they're reunited, which could seem like just hours, and it could be 80 years. You know, we don't know because of the time thing. But it's our need to, you know, and again, I love it. It's our need for compassion. It's our need for empathy. It's our need to heal. It's our need to help. It's our need to fix things. But like Randi said in the beginning of the book, it's kind of like, well, it's not like that in heaven, because we know we're all conditional love. We know we love each other. We don't see color. We don't see sexual orientation. We don't see religion. We don't see anything. We just see us and moving our soul forward. And yeah, so I think I don't know, it's fascinating, isn't it? Like this really gets into the meat and the potatoes of the afterlife, because it's just fascinating.
And it's the difference in each one of our experiences too, you know, that brings about our belief system. So,
well, and it's funny because this triggers people. Like Dion has a very different opinion, which is great, you know, than some here, and that's great. I like the fact that everybody has a different take. It says here there are several of these other lands, and they are inhabited by former Earth people who have progressed significantly to qualify for entry into this or that land. These other lands are nearly all inhabited by higher form of life, a happier form, and individually a more powerful form. But there are one or two other lands of not so high in order, where happiness is less or not at all, according to whether life on earth was a well or lightly ordered thing. In these lands, the people who are there fail and fail again to find the spirit in themselves, to desire to rise, to improve and control themselves. Although the necessary strength is offered and even thrust at them. And you know, that's funny because, well, I mean, it's not funny, but it kind of is. Because I've always said that I always felt that there were varying stages. You know, like that might be somewhere where like a serial killer goes, you know, like a Jeffrey Dahmer, and they have to keep working at it and to figure it out, to go up in levels. And I don't know what your take is, but when he talks about the different places, I kind of feel that that also is kind of like dependent on where you fell in. Like let's say some are more communicating with Earth, and another one maybe music, because music is a big thing there. So I mean, there's different categories, and I think that those different places probably are different categories. What do you guys think?
I think they're different vibrations. You know, I tend to look at things energetically, so I just kind of look at things more of from a vibrational standpoint. And I just wanted, because I'm kind of watching too with Diane. Is it Diane? Deanne, sorry, Deanne. I do want to say, like, that woman crying on the beach, I'm sure they're helpers. Like, that's what I'm saying. I think like what Tammy was saying about giving the energy. Listen, we all need healing. We should be giving that stuff away like it's
right.
You know, I always say when my energy is complete or fill for the day and I feel, content, then I share all my energy with whoever needs it, to lift the vibration up. But I do see it, Randy, as vibrational levels, just like as he went from the Blue Island, he went to the mundane world, and then he knows there's other worlds more to go, just like he says. So I think it's a shift in your vibrational rate. You can choose to sit there and pout in it. If you're greedy and you sit in the vibration of greed, then that's where you stay. You're eternal. You can,
well, unless you change it. Yeah.
Unless you change it. And it goes back to that personal responsibility and that choice. Nobody, and just think about it. You don't want anyone to tell you how to live or what to do. You want to make the choices for yourself. Some days I want people to come and cook for me and clean my house and buy my groceries.
You won't need neither.
I know I'll have my unicorn and a bunch of gummy bears.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is in chapter 11, he talks about residence, which you had brought up before, Stacy.
Yep.
And it says, we can at will return to the Blue Island, and many do so frequently, both to meet newly arrived friends and associates and to help any person or group with whom we are in sympathy. These are only visits, and we do not ever again return there to live. Now, when he talks about the new place he's at, travel here is a very different thing to the methods you all know. And we all set out in a large party for the real world. Not our whole party, as on first arrival, many weren't ready to leave. But with us were many other spirit people besides those with whom we had originally arrived. There was the same sensation of flying, moving rapidly through the air. Then we came to our new home. It was more toneless in color. And then he says, more strikingly like parts I had known on earth. And there were also buildings I knew.
Yeah, you're right by the part where the quote is, the houses of rest and the houses of music. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just going to bring up another book. Life
Oh,
in the-
here it is. Here it is.
Yeah.
Here also, there are rest houses, houses for music, houses for scientific research, houses for all and every kind of information and knowledge. And the entrance fee to each and all is that of desire.
Yeah. It's amazing. And that's where I have to say, I have to go back to the levels of vibration. You know, it's a level of attraction, a level of vibration, a level of desire. I mean, I don't think we sometimes get a grasp on how powerful natural and spiritual laws are. And they reside here and they reside there. They're the exact same. They're not different. They're not more godlike. They're God's laws. So of course they're going to go through all dimensions, and I think the law of vibration in this Life in the World Unseen, and for Deanne, if she's in England, she can probably get a hands on a copy because it's actually an English published book first, and it's kind of hard to find, but in his understanding, there's levels, and you can rise up and you go down to help, because it's the only way you're going to rise up, right? Is by service. But you can't rise up farther than you are able. You know, you have to do the work. You have to come to the understanding. And he kind of talks about the same thing. It's that vibrational shift. The more knowledge, he moves on to the next world where there's even, guess what? More knowledge.
You know, the one thing I can say is I know more than a few of us are going to end up in this land. I know I am. And you know, Jack has no choice. I'm going to drag her. And Stacy, you know, whichever one gets there first is going to drag the other. So, you know, probably a bunch of us are going to be there. But it says, this is a land of freedom, a land of happiness and smiles, a land of happiness brought about through the real love of man for man, a land to work for, a land in which your place is made according to the knowledge you have had whilst upon earth and the way you have used that knowledge. It's impossible to overemphasize the degree of freedom in this world or the joy each and all has in it. Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Let's go.
I feel like, what was his name? Fred Sanford? Come get me.
I'm coming.
Come get me. I'm ready. Well, I think we've gotten really into this, and I think that we've really gone over a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
And if you haven't read it, get it.
Yes, because
and if you have it, reread it once a year, because it really helps put in perspective how you need to live your life now for preparation of the Blue Island.
You better be nice. Don't be naughty. Be nice. And yes, because you know, we've only talked on some chapters up to 11 right now. There's a couple more than that. And it's a short read. It's only like 74 or 75 pages. And it's very fascinating. When you start reading it, you don't want to put it down. And there's a lot more, a whole lot more. Oh, here, Stace.
Oh, there you go. Good.
There's a whole lot more that we haven't even touched on.
Well, there's other writings from other, you know, crossed over spirits and more questions, right? Because who's somebody help me out? Who's the open door to the open secret? Who was that? It wasn't William Steed. It wasn't him. Who was it? Julia's messages. Yeah, enough. You can just never get enough. I can never get enough reading about people's interpretations of the spirit world. I can't.
And you know, it here in the living world, or well, I shouldn't say the living world because they're alive there too. In the physical world, isn't it funny how words make such a difference? You know, it's very interesting to me how mediums work very differently. I find it very interesting. And I tell people all the time, don't judge how somebody else works, because you may think that your way is right, but who are you to say?
Exactly.
No, every way's different. Everybody's different.
You know, and just because something doesn't resonate with you, like I've seen mediums say, oh, so-and-so, they don't know what they're doing, or they're not connected. Yeah. How do you know?
Yep.
How do you know? Don't worry about what the next person's doing. Worry about what you're doing.
Yep.
And
exactly.
If they're not doing something right, or if they're not above board, they're going to be found out. You don't need to worry about it.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about it. And there's, in my mind, there's no wrong way to work. As long as you're connected to spirit and you're communicating appropriately and, you know, giving messages appropriately, then who's to say that your way is wrong just because it's different?
Right. My grandma always said the world would be so boring if everyone was alike. And that's true.
True.
And we know in this book that everybody keeps their existence. So what we have to do is exactly what Randi, you're saying, is to embrace our truth and respect others' truths.
Right.
Could you imagine if 31 flavors didn't exist and all we had was vanilla?
No.
I would really miss my mint chocolate chip.
I mean, that would be horrible.
Cookie dough.
That would be horrible because I don't like vanilla.
Yeah,
I love vanilla.
See, we're right here, 8 flavors.
Dion, honey, I'm sure you're not a fraud. I fully believe that you are connected with spirit. I've seen you write on Facebook and what have you, and I have no doubt in my mind. I have no doubt. So yeah, in closing, you know, I just want to encourage different mediums to try to uplift other mediums. Try to embrace, because, you know, we're all going to end up there, and we're all going to end up there, you know, somewhat together, possibly, depending on where we go. And, you know, if we make our existence here better, then when we get there, it's going to be even better.
Yep.
And imagine the power that we'll all have, you know, together, if we can all learn to embrace each other.
Yep. Instead of goes.
It's not always easy. But, you know, if we work on it all the time, it'll get there. And if you don't resonate with somebody, just stay away from them, for the love of all things holy. You know, just go find where you do resonate.
Yep.
Life on this planet's short. Stacy, when are we going on the unicorn?
Well, tomorrow at 4:44.
I'll have my bags packed.
Don't need them. We travel light over there. That's the other thing he said too. He wore the same clothes. His dad shows up in the same clothes. He's in the same clothes.
Can I just take my MacBook?
Yeah. Okay.
I can leave everything. I can leave my phone because I can communicate. I can leave most everything, but can I just take my MacBook?
Sure, there's no Wi-Fi though. It's all telepathic. That's all he says it in the book. It's all here.
It's okay. As long as I can take it, I'll feel better. And on that, I think we'll say goodnight to everybody. Now, if you guys want to hang out and chat a little bit, I would love it. But let's all say goodnight to everybody else. And we'll look forward to chatting a little bit. Good night, everybody. And thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.